Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. Tonight, I'm very excited to welcome Gwen Herzig. She is a pharmacist out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Her True Life initiative, the main point of that is to provide HRT supplies, medications, to transgender people who don't have insurance. Beyond that, she's just a wonderful and lovely person, and I am so excited for this interview. Welcome to the show, Gwen. Hey.
Hi,
Hi, Gwen. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Awesome. I'm good today. I'm good. Like I said, I'm very excited about this episode. Did I get your last name right? Herzig. Is that
Herzig?
Herzig?
It's
Okay.
like him and her and Zig and Zag, just
Yeah.
Herzig.
I think I went a little old school on that one, but thanks for correcting. So first off, Gwen, how do you identify?
I identify with she, her, and hers pronouns,
Hmm.
and as a trans female.
How did you choose your name?
It was actually my brother, so I actually kind of just broadcasted it out to my whole family. I was like, hey, I'm kind of like taking like name suggestions. Think you got a good one? Just kind of toss it my way. I'll think about it and whatnot. And Gwendolyn was from my brother Jesse, and so like me and Beth talked about it. And it was kind of, I don't know, kind of just felt like it stuck. It was right, and I also like going by Gwen, kind of like a short nickname. So that's kind of how it was.
So when did you realize that you were that you were trans?
So I started like really expecting probably around when I was about 12 years old. Just every night, just kind of wishing that I was like would wake up next morning as a girl. It's probably not like the most normal thing that cisgender people think of.
Yeah.
But that being said, and just kind of from there, just I really kind of like came to full fruition when I was probably in undergrad. I kind of looked at seeing kind of like what resources were available in like Northeast Arkansas, Jonesboro area. There really was nothing. And then I kind of looked at and attempted it again probably when I was in pharmacy school. And then obviously we're here. So
Looking back to when you were a kid, so you said you started to kind of realize it at 12. What were some of the things that you did or that you noticed or you felt at that time?
just kind of like being like excluded from like, because a lot of my friends and whatnot, I felt like I always got along with like girls more than guys for that most part.
Mm-hmm.
It was only until like, high school that I really start hanging out with like a group of guy friends. But even before then, it's like I don't know. It's like there's always things I really wanted to do, but never really got to do. Like there was like cheerleading and stuff that would have been fun, but
Mm.
I kind of like got into more like acting. So at least I got to do like a lot of theater and stuff, which was more like the artistic side. So that was a lot of fun.
Okay. How did you come to terms with who you are and accept that part of yourself once you finally got in? I mean, you were said you were in your undergrad years and you finally realized this is what it is. What did that bring forth, and how did you come to terms with it and deal with that?
So I don't know, like, so kind of like going forward, like to get like the dysphoria part or like the, trying to like pushing back like the thoughts that would kind of like get me upset and whatnot. I was always like very goal focused and oriented. So I always like would stay on top of like goals and tasks, which is kind of like how I've like survived all the way up to this point. So if it wasn't like, oh, making good grades in high school, it was working on East Lab, making sure we went to nationals. If it wasn't that, it was graduating in honors in high school, then moving on to undergrad, it's making sure I got good grades and university honors there, and just so forth. It's like it was just one goal after another. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I dealt with that portion. But as for like, I don't know, I kind of always kind of like accepted it in a sense that it's a part of me. It's just I never like really shown that to anyone forever. I
Mm-hmm.
That was like the best kept secret ever. So I mean, it's
Well, and you mentioned to me in our pre-interview that one of those goals that you set yourself to be able to kind of distract yourself from being trans essentially was getting married.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, not I mean, I wouldn't say distract. It was just like moment of happiness. Like my wife, my spouse,
Mm-hmm.
Beth, is like everything to me. And so, I mean, obviously it's like I wouldn't say it was a distraction. It was just more like, oh, it's just like because I had like moments of happiness and everything throughout my life for sure. But it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it was going through life, it's like I feel like I had more lows, and then like just a nice steady stream of things, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, sorry, I had that phrasing a little bit off. It was just that you'd mentioned that you got very task oriented and you were focused on checking tasks off, and that was how you kind of put that away and
Oh yeah,
focused on the
no.
task instead of that. And so I just found that very very interesting and kind of shows why you're so driven when the things that you do, which we'll get to talk about later. But I found that kind of interesting. That's your motivation to kind of deal and handle the fact that you were trans and kind of push that aside by focusing on these tasks. It's a very
Oh yeah, for
interesting
sure.
take on it.
Like definitely, it's like tunnel vision. So it's like I
Hmm.
don't it's like get on one task and like really make sure it's like done to like complete fruition, and then move on to the next task. And honestly, that's kind of just like how I manage any project for that matter.
Hmm.
So.
Just the way you handle things in general.
Mhm.
During this time, did you have a role model or confidant that you could either look to or speak to directly?
Nope, none.
No?
Nope. Not about being like trans or any of my like thoughts or anything. By no means.
Hmm. So let's move on to the big thing, and that's coming out. How did you come out in the various areas of your life? How did you let others know about your identity?
So it was a very like stepwise manner. So like December of 2019, it started like my dysphoria started like really popping up. I started getting like real depressed and whatnot. And like, normally I was like always looking for that next task, right? Trying to
Hmm.
find that next big project. But at that point, it's like no project that I was taking on was like big enough or like enough to like curb aside it. So it was just getting really bad. So I'm like, it was like April. And so I'm like, okay, April 1st of 2020. I'm like, I'm going to start doing some hormone therapy, see how it goes, and then schedule an appointment with the therapist. Because like 2 weeks of hormone therapy is not going to change, make any permanent changes enough for anything to happen. It just to like see if it makes me feel better. It made me feel a lot better. Just the fact that maybe I was like, oh, this is kind of like, oh, I'm taking a step in the right direction type
Yeah.
step.
Hmm.
So then like the most cringeworthy is like I made an appointment with my therapist. And my therapist is the first person I came out to. And she was super great. But it's like she's like, I knew something you wanted to keep secret. What? Because I just kind of came out with it. I wasn't going to beat around the bush. I'm like, hey, so I'm like midlife crisis. Do you think maybe I'd like identify as a female? And she's like, most people don't want to change their gender for a midlife crisis. That doesn't happen. I'm like, okay. So yeah, so no, it was like super awesome. I mean, we talked through it. We set kind of like some goals and whatnot, and the after her, the next person I came out to was my wife because after that point, it was like a full 2 weeks after starting HRT and about a week and a half after I spoke with my therapist, and
Uh-huh.
it was Good Friday, and like you couldn't think you could get any more cringeworthy. Coming out to my wife was like the most cringeworthy of all things. Oh my god. I was like, it was Good Friday. I was going to tell her all day. And I'm like, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I was going to somewhere in between there. We got through the whole day, and I'm like, I didn't find a good time.
Yeah.
And so we're
Yeah.
getting in the hot tub. I got ended up like, getting out of the hot tub like 3 times, get like a refill on vodka to like trying to build up some like liquid courage.
Hmm.
Oh my God, it was like so miserable. Eventually, she's like, all right, I'm going to get out of the hot tub. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm like, what if I like identify as a woman? And she's like she knew something was wrong. Like she thought I was like cheating on her. And so I'm like,
Oh,
no, 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 no,
yeah.
no, no. But it's still like a lot to take in and whatnot for sure. And like I couldn't answer every single question like all at once. And so it's like let her mull it over. It was like a lot of like dialogue in the first like 2 to 4 weeks.
Hmm.
Eventually there was just a certain point. There was one night where I just like it kind of just like all kind of like came together, and I like ended up like breaking down and everything, which was horrible. But like I think at that point she's like, oh my gosh, this is for real. Like this is a real thing, because at that point it's like you know just normal. It was she didn't really know anything about the trans community or anything.
Yeah.
So
Well, and so you
But
have this first conversation in the hot tub. You're obviously extremely nervous, and it's very hard for you to get it out, which is completely understandable. Um, and I think it's kind of obvious that you would be that nervous, considering that you started HRT and talked to a therapist before you spoke to her. So you said she had a million questions. What were some of the things that she came out with first that were kind of tough for you to think about at that time?
I mean, obviously she's like, "Oh, you already started HRT and stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but my goal with that was like to make sure like I could tolerate HRT and stuff because to
Mm,
me it's like HRT is a very powerful tool, and if I couldn't like tolerate it, reason, or if it wasn't just for me, I mean, that's a pretty big part for me, anyways, is
yeah.
for transitioning. Now, I completely understand HRT is not required for transitioning, surgical procedures are not required for transitioning, makeup or anything is not required for transitioning. Everyone has their own like little place they want to be on the spectrum. To me, to mine is like very far over to the feminine area.
Hmm.
But that being said, yeah, so that was one of her like concerns. Then obviously too, like speaking to a therapist and stuff. I mean, that wasn't so much like a concern. It was like, oh, she's like, I'm glad you're like talking to someone about it.
Yeah, great.
'Cause, once again, I'm very much a planner, so I like to make like stepwise plans to everything. So, and then other than that, I mean, her concerns were, it's like, are you still attracted to me? I'm like, yes, I love you so much. That is not a question or even an issue here. So,
Hmm.
yeah, stuff like that.
And you said that it was a few weeks in when you had sort of a breakdown moment. What did you feel brought that on? Was it kind of emotionally getting to be a lot for you, or was it more that you felt you weren't getting your message across to her?
I don't know. Maybe just a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously that was like I don't know about a month and a half in, so I was still trying to adapt to everything. I mean,
Yeah.
work was very stressful at that time. Trying to like get my learn my style and stuff. Dealing with and I feel like I don't know for me like the early transition part of it, like especially like months 0 through 6 or 0 through 7, were really difficult because it's like, yeah, I want to start dressing film. I want to look really nice. I want to start, and I know not the goal should not be passing by no means, but one of my goals is like, I just want to go out in public and just be identified as female and no question asked and just live my life. But that being said, it's like, the early part of the transition stage, it's like laser hair therapy hadn't fully set in yet. HRT can only work so fast. It's a very, very slow process. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like very nerve wracking to like, I don't want to be like, see a guy in a dress for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's our all of our kind of main fear and it's the main goal. We talk about on this show a lot that same idea that the goal shouldn't be to pass because you can't control again what the HRT is going to do and the timing takes a while. You got to be patient, all of that. But that's all we want. We want to identify as a woman. We want to be seen as that and accepted as that. And with that in our society, the bar is to pass.
and honestly, I remember there's this one really, really sweet night because Beth was like, all right, so she's like, she basically gave me like a dress up night, like a first, like, okay, I'm gonna do like full makeup. She studied about like how to hide stubble or the 5 o'clock shadow and all
Oh wow.
that, with
Uh-huh.
makeup and stuff. And she's like, all right, so she's like, I'm gonna try it and we're gonna do it. I'm like, all right, I'm excited. I'm like, let's do it where there's not a mirror in the room. And at the end of it, after you do everything, if it looks really bad or if you just think I'm going to be disappointed, just tell me no, and we'll just stop, and we'll just try again later. She got done, and she looked real. I mean, she's like, I think you'll be fine. I was literally going from our bedroom into the bathroom. It was like, oh my gosh, my body did not like want to move through the door. I was so nervous. But no, it was awesome. I mean, when I got in there, I was like, oh, I can finally see her. She's there. But
Nice.
it's like we had a couple of wigs too, but we had them on originally to kind of just try out different styles. But at the end, I actually really like my hair was like starting to grow out a little bit, so it was like this cute like little pixie cut.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, this is like really cute. So I don't know, it was just a really special moment.
Oh, that's amazing. It's so wonderful not only to get your significant other's acceptance, but that level of involvement and help with it is incredible. That must have felt so good.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's like, because it's like she wants to try and like she wants me, because I'm important to her and vice versa. So she wants to make sure I'm taken care of and so on and so forth. And I mean, honestly, my wife is like truly amazing because she's like a jack of all trades. So out of high school, she got her cosmetology license. So
Hmm.
the girl can do hair and nails and everything else. But then when I went to pharmacy school, she's like, well, I kind of want to get a modality that maybe pays a little bit better. That way, if something did happen to me, she would be able to support herself. Because with hair, especially in Jonesboro at the time, was not very like a self-supporting, job where if something happened to her, she could have her own place and whatnot,
Okay.
or me. So she went to rad tech school, so she did X-rays, and she did all that up till COVID, and then finally after COVID, she started doing. She opened up her own cleaning business and doing Glow Again, which is like doing fantastic. God, she's actually hiring part-time help now, and so yeah, no, she's a jack of all trades.
What was acceptance like for you within your family and your job? Did you have any particular issues in either of those? How did that go?
No, everything was pretty much good. I mean, the nice thing about like my job, my friends, my family is like I kind of already like not tailored, but I'm like I knew how people were most likely going to react and whatnot. My family's a very loving family, very like down to earth. It might have come to like a shock for a second, but my family's like we just want to make sure you're safe and happy, and we're whatnot. It maybe took my mom a little bit to get a hold of like Gwen, like getting hold of the name Gwen. Not
Yeah, that's
that
pretty
like
common.
names like my mom wants to throw out like Gretchen and Gertrude or no, I'm just kidding. It's probably not those names, but similar stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I love you,
Just
but
more
no,
old lady names? Is that what I'm kind of getting the vibe of?
she might be on here. Be careful. But no, no, but Gwen is like very much kind of like settled. It's going well, so yeah, that was great.
Oh, that's
And then
great.
as for my coworkers, like I kind of introduced so I'm kind of, I don't want to say I kind of test the waters with people.
Okay.
So I was really good about like bringing up this like trans subjects and seeing like everyone's knowledge and seeing like how like there was this particular like work dialogue where I kind of almost got the whole pharmacy involved with like just talking about it. Because someone who's really like uneducated or doesn't really know, like they can easily like when they think drag, they think trans, and I'm like, no, no, those are like two separate situations.
Hmm.
But here I am. I'll just act like completely ignorant. I'm like, really? Yeah, yeah. And then I'll just kind of see everyone's knowledge and see kind of where everyone sides. And I mean, and that's not fair to say side, but just kind of like gauge who's like safer, and maybe I can come out to a little bit easier and explain things to other people. So yeah,
Yeah, just testing the waters and figuring out where people are coming from, probably potentially, labeling or figuring out who the more difficult people are going to be to accept it and how you can tailor that conversation. I think that's a pretty smart way of doing it.
yeah. But all my coworkers were healthcare, working in healthcare are very accepting. We've always, we handle multiple patients and whatnot, and
Hmm.
all my employees were great. I mean, honestly, I just came out pretty much one by one, and kind of let them know. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. Family was great, good support system. Can't ask for much for more than that. And as for my friends, I've always kind of made sure my friends were a certain circle of people. So,
Nice.
mhm.
Did you have any other issues that cropped up at work? Because you work a lot with the public.
Yeah. So I guess one of my biggest fears was like losing my health, like my status as a healthcare provider, like a respected healthcare provider,
Hmm.
because I work directly with like multiple clinics and multiple physicians. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how well this is going to, because I don't know how they feel about the trans community or if they really understand it or yada, yada, yada. And, that was nerve wracking. But, honestly, it's you know, people in the trans community are all around us.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I mean, it's literally. I'm like I mean, the one main clinic I was working with was their her the the clinic manager, his daughter is trans, and she's like a big trans activist. So I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even know. This is awesome. So they were super accepting, and she really helped get the clinic kind of familiar with the issues, and now the clinic's very familiar with me, and they're like, oh, it's just Gwen, and everyone, it's great. So it was really kind of like building up my confidence because
Hmm.
I used to have like I still do have astounding confidence, But like my confidence was like rock solid. And then when I decided to transition, it was like someone took like a chisel and or a slightly and just like shattered my confidence. So it was
Oh,
like literally over the last year, I've had to like piece that confidence back together and like make sure I'm like rock solid again. And I'm definitely at this point 100% back to where I was, so I can be like very motivated and make sure I can get things done.
yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. I think that's pretty common. I know at least for dating, I definitely had that happen, but I think in other ways too, there are a lot of areas where this extra thing does kind of help chip it away at our confidence and make it a little bit more difficult to do all the things. I know like going out sometimes was more difficult because, I wasn't confident in myself or my presentation. At first when I came out, I wasn't sure like, I didn't want to put makeup on or whatever, so then I can't go out and wear my feminine clothes. I have to wear boys' clothes because I feel like I still look like a boy. So, um, yeah, it's just a lot of eroded confidence at the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, you live in Arkansas, and I know that's a kind of a troublesome area, especially nowadays with some of the stuff they're putting in legislation, but I don't think that's really anything too new. Did that influence or have an effect on any of your coming out or your confidence or level of acceptance around there?
I would say maybe a level of acceptance for like the general population because it's a lot of like uneducated hearsay, sadly. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you have all these scare tactics with this legislation that's coming out, and like pretty much any trans individual say that a lot of these things that they're trying to pass are just like, oh, like going after Frankenstein's monster that doesn't exist, but just to rile people up. It's the most ridiculous thing. I mean, for instance, it's like the trans youth bill, like, oh, like they're trying to like make it sound like the trans youth are like being prescribed HRT, which is like, oh, everyone's getting like testosterone or estradiol and yada yada yada. I mean, that doesn't happen for kids. There's very strict guidelines and very educated like pathways for that. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it's about like suppressing puberty, which means that we're just preventing puberty from happening, giving the child more time to figure out their specific identity and which path they want to go down. Plain and simple. But everyone wants to be like, oh, you're going to make them grow a beard or they're going to go breasts or whatever. And it's just like, oh, it's just, I don't know. It's like, instead of like listening to facts and like science, we want to like, oh, we want to like, for instance, that one like senator, I mean, this wasn't Arkansas, but he's like genital mutilation, genital mutilation and a vaginoplasty are like two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Very two different things. And it's like, and first of all, surgeries don't happen to minors. That doesn't happen at all. But no one wants to talk about that. They just want to get scared and riled up about something. So whatever.
Yeah, and that makes it really tough. That's a really tough hurdle for us to overcome. I know Jeannie, I think she's in the chat, was saying that she just went to a thing where for that bill you were talking about, and the experts they brought forth were using really old studies and old information, and again, like you said, they were really avoiding the science in a lot of ways. It's just super
I know.
unfortunate.
I'm surprised I didn't bring up leeches and bloodletting. I
Hmm.
mean,
Well, genital mutilation, like you said, that's such a twisting of it. That's a completely different thing, but it's something we've heard of, and it's kind of, buzzwordy. So let's start throwing that in there, and they just love to confuse to try and get a point across. It's pretty rough. Um,
I'm pretty sure if you throw the word mutilate in front of anything or behind anything, it just sounds absolutely horrible.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like I said, so it's a great buzzword for getting everybody riled up. Darcy Liv says in the chat, in your profession, so as a pharmacist and dealing with a lot of medical care professionals and companies, have you encountered anything there as far as people who object to transgender healthcare?
I've only come across really one person, and she wasn't like super objecting, but I feel like she was super uneducated and maybe slightly transphobic. So, I'm not going to call out any providers, but that being said, the majority, I would say at least 95% of providers, they don't care. They're just there to make sure the patient's treated and taken care of and yada, yada, yada. But it shouldn't be like when you have an EMT call to your house and maybe it's that 1 out of 3 or 5 million or whoever, and they're like, you're having a heart attack, but he's like, oh, I didn't know you're trans. I don't believe in your like whatever. I don't want to treat you. I mean that's no bueno. You're an EMT. Save the person's life. They're human. Get them to the hospital. Come on, people.
Yeah. When you came out, were there people that accepted you that you weren't expecting? Was there any areas, either like directly in your life or in the greater community, that surprised you?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Do not judge a book by its cover. Very much like yourself, it works the exact other way. The perfect example is my next door neighbor, Amy, and oh my God, Blake, Amy and Blake. Uh, Blake is like hunting, like archery. He's a super awesome guy. But it's like I'm like, oh my God, it's like it's bringing me back to my high school days with like camo crowd and like super like manliness. I'm like, oh, I don't know, but yeah, no. It's actually, when I reintroduced myself to Amy, and she's like, "Oh wow, Blake's like has family that's LGBTQ." I'm like, "What? Oh, and Blake are pretty tight. I mean, we're great, good, best neighbors I could ever ask for. But if I was making a bet, I would have lost a lot of money, a lot. But yeah, no, for sure. That's just one of many examples. I mean, and I have plenty of patient examples.
Hmm.
So, and I think what's really nice is that honestly, I've only had maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5 patients transfer out of my pharmacy that were transphobic or maybe just didn't believe in my way of life.
Hmm.
But like majority of my patients are like, oh, either A, it's like we didn't know, and then afterwards maybe they go educate themselves and see that, oh, Gwen is just, Dalton is now Gwen, and it's like, oh, they're still taking care of us, they're still human, they're still doing what they do, and I can still come to them whenever I need something. Like, yeah, for sure, because me and Jesse will still be at the pharmacy in like 10 minutes if someone has an emergency, plain and simple. So.
Let's switch over to community and finding that greater family basically to belong to that understands what you're going through. What was your first experience trying to find a community like that?
It was probably trying to find like an HRT provider. So the first like community that I kind of like reached out to was probably the trans group in Arkansas trans group, which has been a great community, a great first stepping stone into
Hmm.
like having help and like asking questions and everything. Um, and so from there, it's like I'm not gonna lie, I started out as that creeper, like just checking, like seeing what's out there, seeing what like resources or whatnot. I think we all
Lurk mode.
pre-transition people start there
Yeah.
for sure, kind of like seeing what the waters are, and then obviously too, like Reddit was also a good like. I'm not gonna lie, if you're trans, you've probably seen transition timelines, unless you're like non-binary maybe. So, I mean, I've seen timeline photos after one, after one, after one. Just kind of like, everyone's transition's different. Everyone like develops at a certain time. So it's not really fair to look at timeline photos, but it kind of gives you kind of like maybe a sense of what could happen. So, for sure. But from there it's like Arkansas trans community, and then from there it's like finally finding my HRT provider,
Mm.
and then from there it was like just Courtney Frierson and Wade in Little Rock area. They're therapists. They are been super awesome. They're very well connected. So then it's like making connections with healthcare providers and therapists, and just kind of fully like and just expanding my spider web of people that I know and trust. So.
Mm. Did that help you on your journey, having other people to talk to? Did that help in any of your conversations with coming out to friends and family?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's once again, it's nice. Once again, there's more and more and more out there for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, and being able to like say, oh, I'm not the only one that's having this experience, or like being able to talk to people. Yeah, actually 100%. Now, would I say it made me more comfortable, like coming out to like friends and family? No, I mean, it's like I kind of did all that in the beginning before like really like branching out into the community as much as I had. So
Okay. And now you mentioned that you started almost the first thing you did was to seek out a therapist. How has that helped along your transition?
Oh, me and Holly are tight. I mean, so Holly's the first person I came out to, and Holly is like just wrote my GRS letter. So it's like super awesome. So Holly can act. What's nice about Holly, she's literally seen me from start, and I'm not finished yet, but it's like it's nice that she's been able to see the whole change, I
Hmm.
guess. So that's pretty awesome. So I mean, even like my depression anxiety scale, my anxiety is still kind of like where it was. I mean, I'll always have anxiety. That's just kind of how that's my fuel, my Mountain Dew, in a sense.
Hmm.
But as my depression though, I mean, my depression is like almost. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still kind of have like a couple blah days, but nothing like it was at all.
Nice. And so, what does transition look like for you at this point? Have your goals shifted as you've gone through, and kind of where do you see yourself at this point?
So, I think at the beginning it was like, oh, I want the full package. I want HRT. I want to be, like closet full. I want every surgery that there is to know. But, at the end of the like now I'm like, yeah, I still want some like surgeries, but I mean, as for like facial feminization, because that's very beginning of it, I was like, I want FFS, I want FSS. Now, are there some things about my face that I don't like? Of course. I mean, but everyone's their biggest critic.
Hmm.
So my nose, like, oh, I wish my nose was like a little cuter. But honestly, that's pretty much it on my face.
Hmm.
So I mean, but and as for like, oh, like everyone's like, I want a boob job, and I'm like, eh, I'll give it 2 years. I'll see where they get. I mean, they've been doing pretty good so far, so that's great. And then as for like other things, like I mean, I guess for me personally, GRS is kind of like the biggest one I want, and that's just I don't know, personal preference.
Yeah, the one thing for you, and how far along are you in your journey now?
I will be 1 year as of April 2nd.
With with the everything with HRT, how
Mhm.
much do you feel that being a pharmacist and being able to tweak and sort of maybe having a greater knowledge of the medication has helped in your actual physical changes? Do you think it's had an effect?
I think being knowledgeable for sure, and actually having the connections with the HR, my HRT providers, like, because I'm pretty, I don't know, I feel like I'm pretty solid with everyone in the Little Rock area or Arkansas for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have Vector Healthcare in Northwest Arkansas, which services that whole side of the state, which is doing great work. In the Little Rock and Central Arkansas area, I mean, you have the Gender Spectrum Clinic, which services 21 years and younger, and that's with Dr. Hutchinson. She's doing great. Janet Cathy with Planned Parenthood, she's doing great work. Then you have Mary Racher, who's at UAMS. She's doing great work. Then you really have you have Kim Hill now, and Kim Hill's actually she's actually going up to Will Powers in Detroit. She's there right now, learning the Will Powers approach. Going to bring it to Arkansas, so
Hmm.
that's super great. And then you got
Wow.
Teresa Nemo in Baptist, or no, she was affiliated with Baptist. I think Teresa Nemo has her own like practice now. Not 100% sure, but regardless, Dr. Nemo is fantastic. She does a lot of HRT, and she's an actual endocrinologist. That's her specialty. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then in Northeast Arkansas, you have Daniel Lynch doing HRT too. And so, I mean, it's expanding. We're growing. There's HRT providers out there. As for you South Arkansas residents, you're gonna have to take a day trip. I'm sorry, but as for everyone Central or North, I mean, they're there. So,
Hmm. What were some of the key fears you've had during your journey, and how have you overcome those?
oh my God, my key fears. I guess like the biggest key fear is like losing everything. Like, what's funny? I felt like a long time ago, I'm like, if I could just wake up as a woman, there's not much that I wouldn't give up. But now, but then it's like, well, now it's like, well, if you want to be a woman, it's like you got to put in the work. It's like, oh no, now I'm like putting in lots of work, and then it's like, how many people I'm going to lose? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and also it's like my job, my status, my everything my education, which you can't take away education. I get that, but it's like a lot that you work for it, and it's like that true deep feeling of like you are going to lose
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially like even like the biggest thing is like my wife. I'm like I do not want to lose her at all, but I'm like losing myself. So it's like I have to like roll the dice or do something. So
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's the sad truth for a lot of people. There is a lot of loss involved in transitioning. There's a lot that you have to deal with, and it causes a lot of turbulence and a lot of change. But again, like you alluded to, it's so important to be able to be yourself and to get to that level within yourself that I wouldn't say it's worth it, but it's sort of necessary to go through it. What do you do in your life or in your presentation to feel valid, to feel that really strong validation of like, oh yes, like I am totally a woman and this is me?
I guess it's really like getting up in the morning. Like you know, I used it's really funny. It's like early transition stages, like I was like full face of makeup. I'm not going outside without a full face of makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, you know, with my laser hair therapy and all that, like a lot of this is like almost gone. I still have like my hair is just so dark. It's just it'll take a while to get fully rid of that 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
But it's like a little concealer, some eyeliner, some mascara. I'm good to jet. You know, it's so I'm getting a lot more comfortable with that. But I don't know. A nice thing about my work is dressing professional. Is that so I can throw on a nice dress, some earrings, have
Mm-hmm.
my face done, feel like I look good, and just kind of go. So
Yeah. Yeah, I did love that about my office job in a nice company was the fact that like it wasn't too out of place for me to wear a dress every day and heels and jewelry and the full makeup. So I did really appreciate that and appreciate that level of expression that I was able to do. I thought that was really important for me to get to that level of acceptance in myself. Because if you're excited about what you get to wear and how you get to present, then how you actually look starts to kind of fall to the wayside a little bit, and you can actually really enjoy it.
oh yeah, for sure. And what's like super, and my wife kind of makes fun of me. She's like it's 40 degrees out. You're gonna wear a dress. I'm like, it is like a 20-second walk from my car to that door, and then I am in like a 70-degree environment for the next 8 hours. So yes, I am. I'll throw on a cardigan.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've gotten to that of like I understand what previous girlfriends and things would do, like why they would wear the cuter outfits, even though maybe it wasn't the most comfortable. I totally feel that. It's just like, yeah, it's how long am I going to be uncomfortable for? If it's just a little while, then absolutely, I'll go for whatever's the cutest. What forms of dysphoria do you struggle with these days then?
You know, my face is still kind of like some mornings I'll wake up and I'll be like, I feel like I look good, and then other mornings I'll be like, oh, why? Okay, it's fine. Just keep trucking. It wasn't like it was like months ago. So
Hmm.
there's that. Uh, you know, you know, lower bottom dysphoria, I guess you could say, without being like too graphic on it. But I'm a healthcare provider. But nonetheless, I don't know. Like for that, it's like I just want to wear a cute bathing suit and whatnot. And it's like I don't really like. And tucking is like so annoying over and
Yeah.
over again. So it's like whatever. But kind of like that. Not too horrible. I really
Mhm.
those are kind of like my biggest.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to kind of understand what level of genital dysphoria I have and what level of need I have for GCS because the main thing is yeah, the bathing suit. It's just like the bathing suit or tight leggings to go for a run, to go do some exercise. It's just like the tucking and worrying about that and coming untucked. Um, as we said on Transgenders, popping a tuck. I love that phrase. But it's just the worst thing and the worst thing to kind of worry about. So um, that at this point is sort of my main motivation for getting GCS. What were what were some of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome in your transition? Or perhaps, we also talk about learning curves, things you had to learn and adjust to. What were some of those big things when you were going through your journey?
You know, self confidence, I guess. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not like being able to like go out to the store and just like do my shopping without thinking like everyone's looking at me, which no, everyone is looking at me. But
Hmm.
you're like on high alert, so you're like, is everyone looking at me? And then so you're kind of like trying to nonchalantly look around to make sure no one's looking at you. Which then it's like, well, did that person look at me? Oh my god. So it's like I don't know. So self confidence in a way that's like just go in and do your shopping, do your stuff, which is a lot better now. But you know, that's always a first struggle. Using the appropriate bathroom, that is like that's a big milestone for any person.
Yeah.
So you know, for sure. Name change, big milestone, big hurdle. Got that done. That's because you want your real name and you want your real gender on everything. The only thing I can get yet done is my birth certificate, and that's because Arkansas requires proof of GRS before they can do it. So, like, I can get my name change done on it, but I'm not going to get my name change done on it separately, then later go back to my um, sex. I'd rather just do them both at the same time. So there's that. There's that hurdle. What other? Oh, I mean, just going up to my HRT doctor for the first time. Oh my God, that was like super stressful. Like
Hmm.
it was the first day I decided to wear a dress out. And so here I am. Beth's like, and it was during like COVID. So Beth was going to go with me and go to my appointment with me, but they wouldn't let her go up there. So literally, she's like, all right, you're going to be fine. I was like, will you at least walk to the door with me? She's like, okay. And so we get up there and like, okay, is it one or two appointments? And like, just one. They're like, all right, only the first can go up. I'm like, Beth, come back. But
Don't
yeah,
leave
that was
me.
super cool. But that was a hurdle. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, a lot of it's just like really like social anxiety hurdles. So
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if it's more getting acceptance in yourself of your presentation, or just time, just getting used to doing it over and over again, where you finally get to that point of like going to the bathroom, using the appropriate restroom is no longer a big deal. Going out and doing your shopping and just doing your day-to-day stuff is just becomes second nature like it used to be. I think it's just, like I said, I think it's just time. I think that the pandemic and having to wear a mask all the time and cover up the strong chin and the 5 o'clock shadow has really helped a lot. But yeah, I
oh
think the
yeah,
main thing,
most
it just seems to
people,
be
yeah,
time.
for sure.
Mhm. What's the favorite thing of yours that you've learned through your journey? What's the big takeaway that you've really enjoyed?
Oh, like actually looking at myself. I know that sounds so conceited, but it's like I have never take any value in my personal appearance whatsoever at all. Like even my mom says at this point, it's like she can tell that I'm just like so much happier in the way, and I take pride in the way I look, and it's because I like the way I look now.
Uh-huh.
It's simple. I mean, it's like I like getting up every morning and putting on my nice dress and getting my jewelry on and getting my face done into a sense where I look like a human person. And then looking in the mirror, I'm like, I think I look good today. I mean, it's like a good self confidence booster. I'm gonna go get the day done and get going. So,
Yeah, I find that too. There's nothing better than looking in the mirror after you're done and going, I look pretty. Like it's just such an amazing feeling. Never expected it to happen actually, but it's so great when it does. So as we wrap up this portion, the big question we like to finish up with is what what advice do you have to pass on to young or closeted trans people out there?
yeah, so make a plan. Plans are so vital to success, and have a plan B and a plan C and a plan through Z
Hmm.
because things change rapidly. So, and also have your basic needs met. You know, I feel like a lot of the situations that a lot of my girls and guys get into it, they think that transitioning is going to fix everything. Transitioning can make your life far harder if you don't have your basic life needs met. Make sure you have basic clothing, housing, income, food. After you have your basic needs met, then it's like, okay, go after transitioning because then it's like you have the tools necessary to get it done. Because honestly, doing that transitioning, it can be harder. It can be a lot more harder than it really needs to be. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.